This afternoon now, actually, I'm talking to Lydia Millard, who's running for Ward 10 in City Council. So why don't you introduce yourself and begin by just saying a little bit about who you are, why you're running, and why Ward 10 voters should choose you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure, to be in this building. I actually, for the first time, met some of the people who helped this building and this company run at the Community Conference Connections. And they were saying, we'll teach you how to use the equipment. You come in and have a membership. And I was like, well, more people should know about this. So it's good.
So you're meaning you met, we're in the Speak Minneapolis studio on Nicolette. So you met some of the people from Speak Minneapolis?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yes,
great.
So it was great. And I actually did an interview with them at that conference as well because they wanted to know how the conference was going and things of that nature. So it was really great. But yes, my name is Lydia Millard, and I'm running for City Council, Uptown, Ward 10. So I'm super excited. Yes, I'm super excited. I am running mainly because I grew up in this area. I'm from Minneapolis originally, as far as being raised in the north side of Minneapolis, right on 39th and Emerson. And so I attended all the schools and did a lot of the after school programs and summer programs. I was a part of a lot of the community organizations over there as well, and community centers like Farview, Falwell, Weber Park. I was a sports kid growing up, and I played pretty much every sport, you name it: track, tennis, basketball, volleyball, softball. But then I was also a theater kid. So I did plays. I performed at the Capri Theater over on Broadway.
Busy kid,
you know, and then also did dance and choir and dance meaning like tap, jazz, ballet, and also made sure that I liked the balance of kind of being a busybody. That's kind of always been my thing. I've always been a multifaceted, multi-interested person, and I just always thought if it sounded like something interesting, why not try it? I'm a person of curiosity. So I've currently been living in Uptown for the past 5 years. And so I originally lived in Whittier for the first 4.5 years. And just recently moved over to 28th and Girard. So right by Hennepin. And so the construction on Hennepin has been interesting. And there's just been a lot of changes that I've seen in that part of the neighborhood, especially growing up in North Minneapolis. I came to Uptown to hang out because we didn't have lakes. Mm-hmm. And Uptown was kind of like the area for like young business professionals at the time that were just graduating college or just getting their first job.
At the time, like what year frame are you talking about here?
I'm talking about like early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah, so like between...
20 years ago or so.
Yes, about 20 years. I was trying to do the math in my head, so thank you. Yeah, about 20 years ago. It was like the hustle and bustle of that area, and it just was a different type of community. People knew their neighbors. It didn't matter if they were retired or if they were just starting their first job. You knew your neighbors. You would walk down the street. You would know people by face, know people by name. You would spend the whole day in Uptown. It used to be a whole day. Where you could go to the lake, walk around, and then you would go to one of the restaurants and support, and then you go to one of the retail spaces and see what's new. And there was always something interesting, or because we had very niche type of retail spaces and restaurants, and it was just a different type of experience. People walked everywhere, and parking wasn't the greatest 20 years ago either, but you found a space and you figured out how to make it work. Or in my case, because I was a teenager, I caught the bus, right? Me and Metro Transit had a very great relationship when I was a teenager. So that's just a little bit about who I am as far as my upbringing. Now I'm currently the executive director for Stevens Square Community Organization, and that's technically in Ward 6. But a lot of the things that the current city council handles is what we do on a very smaller scale. So public safety initiatives, neighborhood development, and greening and sustainability initiatives. We've got 2 gardens that we have, and we're adding a 3rd plot with a partnership that we have with Plymouth Church, because our office is in Plymouth Church. And so it's been wonderful developing those relationships, everything from park board relationships to county, Hennepin County Commissioner and MPD in the 5th Precinct and things of that nature. It's just been great to develop those relationships and utilize those. But I also work for Target, right? Doing store operations, specifically in fulfillment. That is a lot of like individual contributors and really developing a plan, whether it's a short-term or a long-term strategy, and allocating a budget and providing logistics, and then figuring out which partners are needed in order to execute this plan. So is safety needed? Is procurement needed? Are tests needed? Do we need store feedback of what we're trying to roll out? Should we roll it out in a pilot phase and then slowly incrementally add more stores? Or is this something that can go chain wide? So just having a lot of background with being able to work with a lot of different peoples to get one thing done is expertise of mine.
So let me jump in there. So to kind of summarize that is, you're kind of making the case that your experiences that you've had through the volunteer work through Target are like applicable skills for the city council, and why you're running would be, it sounds like because over the last 20 years, Uptown has really changed, and you, and maybe as we talk, you can share your vision for what that Uptown is going to be that you would like to see. But have I missed anything there?
No, you basically hit the nail on the head. I'm really running because I care. Okay. And I care enough to see our neighborhood get better. I care enough for others to see that our neighborhood can get better. I care for others to believe in leadership again, and to want to be a part of that journey and to partner and collaborate and participate. I kind of want to be that beacon light at the end of the tunnel that says like, hey, things can get better. We just have to make different decisions about the leaders that we're putting in these positions, and do they really have our best interests? Are they really our best advocates? And I can be that person for you, because I'm already doing that work. But not only can I do the work, but I can do it better.
So when you speak about the interests, what would you say are the top 3 priorities of your neighbors and residents of Ward 10?
Yes. So one of the most interesting facts about talking with constituents that live in the neighborhood, as well as business owners, property owners, and everyone in between, is doesn't matter what your race is or your gender or your background, your income level, all of those things have different variations depending on the person you're talking to. But the one thing they all have in common, and this is the number one priority, is public safety. People have completely changed their perception of what Uptown is. And that also is not just for the people who live in our neighborhood, but that's for people outside of our neighborhood as well. People don't even want to come to Uptown because they know that crime has increased. They know that encampments have been an issue. They know that the drug epidemic, especially fentanyl and opioids, are really impacting a lot of people, especially our youth. And it's taken a drastic toll on people's well-being, livability, and whether or not they feel safe. So that's why we don't see people walking on the streets like we did 20 years ago. Because there could be an increase in crime that causes gunshots to be fired at 1 a.m. or 1 p.m. People don't really know anymore
right.
about.
That's kind of the part of the scary nature of it, right? Is just the random. It seems random a lot of times. Yeah.
So I would say that's the number one priority. The second priority would be the supporting of our small businesses or lack of businesses. The businesses that have kind of weathered the storms with us through COVID, through George Floyd, civil unrest, and the murder of George Floyd is, two factors that really hit a lot of the kind of like the heart of what Uptown was. And then you add on that the businesses that stayed, they're enduring all of those public safety issues that's really making it hard for them to create that customer base that they really need. And a lot of the businesses relied on that foot traffic, relied on having access to parking to be able to have people from other areas of the metro come and visit our neighborhood. And so the businesses are kind of hanging on by a thread. And they're really just saying, if we don't need help with advertising, we don't need help with marketing, we know how to run our business, we don't need help with operations or with hiring staff. What we want is for someone to clean the streets up, for our area to feel safe, so people actually want to come in and support the businesses. But then also there's a lack of businesses. We have a newsletter that we put out every week for the campaign, and we just recently put one out, actually yesterday. One of the things that we talked about is that there's 2 more businesses in our neighborhood that's closing. Iron Door is closing Sunday, and Lagos Tacos is closing as well. Now, we have some team meetings that we do once a week, and one of the things that I'm passionate about is supporting the businesses. So our team meetings are held at a different location within the ward.
And is that when you say team meetings, you mean your campaign?
My campaign team,
yeah.
Yes. So they're held at a different location to support the businesses in the neighborhood, because I don't want to just say I want to support businesses. I want to show that. So I make sure that we choose a different location each time. So this past week, we went to Lagos Tacos, and I'm talking with the owners when I go to these places, and I'm saying, hey, give me some feedback on how things are going. What would you like to see in your next city council representative? What are some of the obstacles that you're enduring? And talking with Lagos Tacos, they said, hey, we've seen what's happened on Hennepin and what that construction has done to those businesses over there. And they are proposing to do the same thing on Lindale next year. And we're not going to wait around to see the decline of our business, knowing it's coming. So their lease is up, I think, in May. And they're moving to St. Louis Park. They don't want to risk it. And that is concerning.
Yes.
Right? Because we've had 50 businesses in the past 5 years that have closed between our commercial corridors, Hennepin, Lake Street, Lindale, Nicollet. And it's sad because that entrepreneurial spirit and drive to want to do better for yourself and for your family, but then to also understand that small businesses actually employ people who live in the neighborhood. A lot of the staff that I talk to at these businesses, those staff people live in the neighborhood or sometimes close nearby. Maybe they might live in Loring Park, but it's kind of in the same kind of proximity. Sure. But when we lose those businesses, we lose job opportunities. We lose another staple that someone had an opportunity to be able to support. And so the lack of businesses is also concerning. And then seeing that businesses are making decisions like that before things even happen is I think, a disservice to them. I think that we are doing a disservice to them. And so not only should we be supporting the businesses that we currently have, but we also need to get back to what made Uptown, which is those unique niche retail restaurant locations that were the mom and pop shops, those small business owners, that local entrepreneurship that really made that area thrive, and to be able to fill those vacant commercial spaces with those type of businesses, and then create those innovative ideas and businesses as well to kind of keep up with the trends and tides. I mean, we're moving very swiftly into a lot of technology and things of that nature, and so it's like, how are we keeping up with the trends and things of that nature? The youth are way ahead of us.
Sure.
And we're not including them in the plan at all. So
we got public safety, small businesses, and there are third.
Yeah. So the third one mainly is constituent services.
Okay.
So a lot of the constituents in the neighborhood have tried to reach out to the current person in council, whether it's a email, a letter, a phone call, and there have been so many people who have stated, I never get a response, and so I just stopped trying, or the few that did get a response, it wasn't anything of substance, so they felt it was a waste of their time. Other people have said, I wanted to reach out, but I've heard that she doesn't respond, and so I don't want to become even more frustrated by trying to reach out and then feeling like kind of rejected. So constituent services is really the number one job of a city council person. And so it's kind of hard to understand, how you're making solutions or making a plan for the neighborhood when you're not even hearing what the neighborhood has to say. And so we have to get back to the basics. The basics of a city council position is listening and responding to your constituents, roads, lights, trash, right? Just like the basics. And we have not been consistent with those. And I think that our neighborhood deserves that, and they deserve better than that.
Great. So I want to circle back, if we could, to public safety, because, that's what pretty much everybody says is their number one priority. And so what do you see as yourself doing different from what is currently being done if you're elected, and what exactly does public safety mean?
Yeah, good question. So public safety really entails having a presence of police force, and we've had a shortage of police officers even before COVID. Mm-hmm. We had and COVID happened, and the George Floyd civil unrest happened, and the amount of officers continued to decline. And so the reason why you don't have a short response time for an emergency, the reason why crime is able to increase is because you don't have enough officers on staff to really to be able to hit those hot spots and to be able to answer those emergency calls in a timely manner. And so that staffing shortages really shows in our neighborhoods. So I'm very passionate about getting the youth involved in public service, because the kind of pipeline to be able to create that consistency has to be getting them engaged, and showing them that they do have a purpose to serve in their own communities, and they actually know their communities better than anyone else. And so getting them involved is super important, because that saying of the youth is the future really is the truth. But building that relationship is very necessary. And
so are you kind of saying you're hoping that the police and youth will develop trust, so that the youth see becoming a police officer as the viable future, is kind of what you're...
Absolutely. And I think right now what we've seen is a change in that. The last couple graduating classes of cadets have been young people, have been diverse, and they really are a reflection of their community. As of 2024, it was the first time that we've ended the year with an increase in recruitment. And this last cycle of applications, we got over 1,000 applications, which is the most applications we've gotten in the past 5 years. And the questions that they're asking of, why are you choosing to join the force now, is they understand that MPD hasn't always had the best light shined on them. I'm a Black woman, come from a Black community. I can speak to endless points on that piece. But at the same time, we also need to be protected. We also want to be protected as well, right? And so there is a stigma that's been placed on them, and so they understand that. They're acknowledging that by saying we need to do things differently because how we've been doing them up until this point, it's not working. And so the youth are also seeing those changes, and they're saying, hey, I want to be a part of that. I want to be able to be a reflection of my community. I want to be able to show my community that there can be trust between police officers and the communities that they serve in. And so the MPD has done a great job of saying, hey, what can we do to bring in more youth? So they pay for college, right? In a environment right now where most college students go to school and they end up with college debt. That's one thing that they can take off of their plate. The other thing is that some college students go to school for one degree and end up working in a completely different field for a multitude of reasons, whether they can't find a job, can't get an internship, or maybe it's just not their passion anymore, whatever the case is. But this is one way to kind of kill two birds with one stone. Here's a job, and you don't have any debt because of it.
So just to clarify there, I'm guessing that if the police are paying for college, it's a degree somehow related to law enforcement.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's a criminal justice degree, and so it usually ties back to the force some way, shape, or form.
So let's talk about number 2 there a little bit, the small business. So how does the city council play a role in actually, say, keeping some of these 50 businesses for leaving? Like, what policies or ideas would you put forward to kind of convince people to stay here or come here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the role that city council plays overall is just oversight and budget. That's their role within the city. So oversight means all of the policies and things that are associated, all of the city staff that's associated. It's kind of all of that oversight. And then figuring out what budget do we need to create for our neighborhoods to be successful. Right. And so putting those two together means as a city council person, you have to know your neighborhood, which means you have to know what the businesses need to be able to provide that advocacy of what we need in the budget. And so what we're seeing is there's not been that connection. And so that disconnect is causing people to feel unheard and unseen and left out.
Right. And
so that will easily cause someone to say, well, I'll just go to the suburbs where they got parking and I don't have to worry about crime as much. And, the suburbs still have crime too, but, they just may not have, as much similar crime as far as numbers go. And so there is room for improvement on that piece. The businesses in our neighborhood feel left out, and they've told me that. Right. And they don't feel like the current person in office has their best interests or even cares that they exist. And so there is a sense of hopelessness, but still at the same time, a sense of resilience but this is what I really wanted to do. Like, this business was really needed in this community, and I'm still passionate about seeing my business thrive in this neighborhood, but I need support in order to do that. So if I have an issue and I come to you about my issue, it may not be just my issue. It may be my issue and the neighbor down from me's issue and 2 blocks down from me's issue. So, how can we work together to resolve this issue? And what we're not seeing is that collaboration piece, that partnering piece of saying, how can we work together to resolve this issue? And then scaling it even further. How is this issue also an issue in a different ward? Mm-hmm. Is this the same issue in Ward 7, in Ward 8, in Ward 6? Okay, so how as a collective city council can we work together to help resolve this issue?
Yeah, a good one that you brought up there was the construction, right, with the taco place. It's like, that's not just an issue in Uptown or whenever you do major construction in front of someone's business, it's going to impact the business, right? And it happened in St. Paul and everywhere. So, I guess there needs to be some type of program to help those businesses stay there.
Yeah.
Right?
One thing they did over in St. Paul, when University was first getting that blue line put in, was they knew that it was going to impact the businesses. So they said, hey, let's put aside a certain amount of money in the budget to be able to give as like a grant to these businesses to kind of help their bottom line as they go through this construction. Construction will last for 8 months, but let's put some money aside for that. So they put about $10,000 aside for a business. Now, if you run a business, you know how quickly $10,000 can go. Yeah. That's some businesses, that's 1 month, right? So if construction is going to last 8 months, does that help? Yes. Will it sustain? No, right? And so I think we have to think about things differently, but we also have to think about those things.
Right.
Right.
It's got to be a priority to make it into the agenda.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the actions that the current city council has taken. Are there any particular actions or things that they've done that you don't agree with or that you do agree with? What's your take on that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So one of the things that the current council person worked on for about 2 years was the Labor Standards Board. And I have talked to multiple businesses in the neighborhood who have all said, not one has said, I'm for that. Right. All of them have said, we don't want that. We don't need that. We don't need the city telling us how to run our business. And we already had something similar. It was called a work advisory board. Right. So I have a hard time understanding why are we reinventing a wheel when something already exists. If what we already have isn't working, okay, then let's reassess. What do we need to do in order for that program that already exists to be more successful? How do we utilize what we already have? Right. And so it was just... And here's the other thing. The main reasons behind it, you can understand from both sides. But at the same time...
What do you think were the main... Like, where did it come from?
Well...
If we have the work advisory board already, where did this birth from, the idea of this standards board? Well,
labor unions have so much power as far as within their organizations. I used to work for UPS. I used to be a part of a labor union, so I understand how they function. And sometimes when they're not being heard, they have to take it a step further. And so that's kind of what segued into that. Some people were stating they weren't getting paid, or they weren't getting paid correctly, or they were being shortened, right, because of discrimination and things of that nature. And so a lot of those issues are very valid because I've watched them happen. I've been in the environments and watched them happen. I've also had things happen to me, right? So I completely understand. And so some of that's why I said, when you look at both sides, you can understand where each side is coming from. But I think what we have to think about as the bigger picture is that if the businesses are saying this is not going to work and here are the reasons why, what I'm having a hard time understanding is how come we didn't take a step back and reassess and reprioritize or make some changes to the plan and then move forward, right? If you want to scrap the work advisory board, just say that, right? If it's not effective or if it's not useful, if it's not efficient, then just say that and say, this is what we're going to do instead. We've gotten some feedback and this is how we're going to move forward. There's nothing wrong with that. The transparency piece is critical. Right. But what we're seeing is someone who doesn't own a business, doesn't know how to run a business, has never had a business, tell businesses what to do. That makes no sense. Because if you had an expertise of someone who understood businesses working with you, so the points that you were making, were more validated, then you wouldn't have so many businesses coming back and saying, this is not going to work, right? But you didn't have that. That partnership piece that we were talking about earlier was completely missing out of the equation. And so I think also that goes back to constituent services. Are we listening to what the constituents are telling us?
Yeah.
And if we are we changing what we're doing or updating what we're doing or being flexible with what we're doing to be able to move forward?
So to summarize, there's other versions of the Labor Standards Board that have been proposed. Like the mayor had one that was it was more equally workers, business. But it sounds like, you're more in favor of let's not do a Labor Standards Board. Let's go back and look at the work advisory group or committee and make that work, or trash it and start over, or,
Correct. I would say let's press the reset button.
Yeah.
Let's start all over. Where's the data to back up these things? Where's the metrics? I haven't heard anything about that. I hear a plan proposed, but where are you getting your information from, right? So I think we need to press the reset button. Let's bring all the right people to the table. Let's really have a real discussion, and let's put everything on the table and figure out how do we want to move forward from there. Because at this point, I think everybody's just frustrated on both sides. I think people are just frustrated. Everybody wants a resolution in some way, shape, or form, but we haven't gotten there yet. And so that's the time when you need to press the reset button to figure out what do we need to do to be able to move forward. And that's mainly a lot of what I'm campaigning about, is how do we continue to move forward? How do we continue to make progress? And the only way that we're doing that is by working together.
Right. So that's the Labor Standards Board. Are there other issues? I could rattle off a few, but if there's if there's ones that you particularly come to mind for you that you would like to see handled differently? Yeah,
I would say just overall, the professionalism of our current council person is not a great reflection of the people that live in our neighborhood. And watching the city council meetings and how they're ran and how people talk to one another is completely taken away.
It's not inspiring.
No.
I'll say that.
It's not inspiring. Actually, it's a little embarrassing. Okay. It doesn't matter if you like them. It doesn't matter if you always agree with them. The mutual respect has to be maintained. The professionalism has to be maintained, because you are a representation of 40,000 people. And the issues that we're talking about are the issues on the table. And the issues on the table should be way more important than the tension that we're creating. And sometimes that tension becomes more of the priority than the issue itself. And so I would love to bring back professionalism into the city council.
Well, I think a lot of people would like to see that.
Yes.
Yeah. So what about, just to ask a specific, how the budget happened this year? That was a big one. Yeah. I think a lot of people felt like, maybe that process lacked some needed transparency. What would be your take on the budget this year, and the vetoes and overrides and the back and forth?
Yeah. So I just want to give a little bit of a background for that.
Okay.
So working for a nonprofit, all of our information is public. Our financials are public. We have an equity engagement plan that we have to run by the city. That's public. Every year we have to recap that plan. What did we do? And did it go well? If it didn't go well, what did you learn from it? And we're able to reassess and say, hey, this is how we want to move forward with the next year's plan. But everything is transparent. I have to answer to a board, right? So it's not just my voice, and they challenge me, which is perfectly fine. And they also have things that they want to see in their neighborhood, which is great. And so what we're seeing is too many egos in the room. And we are forgetting why we signed up to serve the communities that we live in. And our community in Minneapolis in general is being so counterproductive because the egos are taking over the space. And in the meantime, we aren't making any progress. And so that's my just overall synopsis of what's been happening with that budget. And I think there's a lot of tit for tat, which is not productive as well. It's being able to work with people and figuring out, okay, what are things that you're really passionate about that you would love to see? Here are some things that I'm passionate about that I would love to see. Okay, how can we bridge those gaps in between? Okay, and then how can we bring in the mayor and say what is needed to reassess? And if there are certain things that come off the table, how do you go back and reassess and say, okay, how do we still move forward and make progress, even with some of these things that we have to reassess, and then still maintain respect for one another in the process, during and after. So I think that there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to that. There were several things that came in last minute when the budget was supposed to be due, and that could be lack of planning, poor planning, that could be lack of communication, that could be lack of organization. It could be so many different things, but we've got to get better at trying to do things right the first time.
Okay. So another, major player in that whole process, and we talked a lot about the city council, but we have the mayor's race is coming up. So do you feel like Fry deserves a third term, or and if so, or if not, what are some of the common ground issues that you would see being able to work with him or a different mayor on?
Yeah, that's a good question. So knowing that it's a mayor's race, you of course look at the rest of the candidates that are running as well. And I know every candidate running.
Okay.
I haven't met Emily Koski yet. But, she's on the city council currently, so it's not like I don't know who she is. I just haven't formally met her. But everyone else I know.
Right.
So for the mayor's race, I'm kind of staying out of it. I'm remaining neutral because I can work with any one of those people if needed. And so I don't have a preference. And it's been actually inspiring to see so many people who care so much for our city and want to jump in and be a part of that candidacy. And so it just says a lot about kind of where we are in the city and kind of, where people feel like they want to get involved now. And it's part of the reason why I'm running, right? Kamala Harris didn't win the presidency. I am bummed, right? But I looked at myself and said, well, what can I do, right? Local politics still has a lot of great things that it does for the community. And so that was kind of like my push to kind of say, let me put my name in the hat, because clearly, Kamala set a very good precedence of, we can do more as Black women. We can do more, and we can aspire to do more. And not only will I say it, let me show you. And it was very inspiring to watch the Democratic Party come together to support her. Okay.
So to summarize there, you're staying neutral on the mayor thing and feel like, you can probably find common ground with any of them and sort of your...
That's correct.
Okay. So the last question I like to ask is, to help people understand you more just as a person. So are there hobbies or activities that you do in the summer that you'd like to share?
Yeah. I love cooking.
Oh, okay, good.
I throw down.
Any particular kind or?
No, that's the thing. I am a foodie. I love all kinds of food. And one of my hobbies is eating. So I love all kinds of food. I love all different kinds of Asian food. I love African food. I love Latino food.
And you cook all those? I
cook all of them.
Okay.
And then of course I'm Black, so there's soul food. And then you've got, your bar and grill food. So yeah, I'm one of those people that will watch a video on like Instagram or something like that, or somebody making something different or something new.
Instagram's dangerous. It sucks you in.
Oh my gosh, especially with the food thing.
Yeah.
I don't have a TikTok because I feel like I would be unemployed. Because I know that takes up a lot of time. But I do watch Instagram and I do get a lot of inspiration. And so I might watch a video and I might see something that looks interesting to make. Like the other day I was looking at jerk chicken tacos, but instead of doing a regular like corn or flour tortilla, they made their tortilla out of plantain.
Oh my God. Well, so that sounds interesting, but my issue is like I'll see a good recipe and it'll be under the recipe. It'll be like, okay, this takes 45 minutes to prepare. Well, that doesn't. Where do I get plantains? I mean, like. Right? Like figuring out that whole process is really like a half a day event because it's like you got to go out and get the special ingredients, and then I'm not a good cook, so nothing that they say takes 45 minutes takes 45 minutes for me, but maybe it does for you.
Can I tell you that's probably half the problem right there?
Which part?
You're paying attention to too many details.
Oh, okay.
I never look at how much time it's going to take.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to. You don't want to be eating at midnight. Right?
No, that's true. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe because I've been cooking for a while, I'm one of those people. I just literally did this the other day. I watched a video because I'm really into like plant-based and vegan meals right now. Hence my smoothie I got from the Wedge earlier. And they made like a version of stuffed bell peppers.
Oh, that sounds good.
But they use mushrooms. I'm not a huge fan of mushrooms. It's like one of the things I don't always like eating because of the texture for me.
Okay.
Seasoned with anything, it's great. But the texture for me is sometimes different. So it has to be like incorporated into something, but it can't be the main thing. But they made it with that. And I sat there and I looked at, for me, I can sit and look at a recipe and say, I don't want to use that. I'm going to use this instead.
See, I don't have that kind of, I have to follow it because I just don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. So instead, because I'm not eating any meat, which is like no fish and no red meat, anything like that, and I'm not doing any dairy, and I'm also not doing any gluten. I know for some people are like, dang, girl, what do you eat?
You're cooking, but without all those things.
Without all those things, yeah. Okay. So I was like, okay, I would love to make stuffed bell peppers. I've also been incorporating more alkaline foods. So I was like, okay, alkaline is like chayote, which is like a Mexican squash, and then tomatillo. I was like, what if I combine those and then did the same kind of seasonings for a stuffed bell pepper, use like some vegan cheese and make that instead. And then I put some fried shallots on top.
Oh,
Terry.
Okay. I have to try. I
gotta show you. I'm one of those people. I do videos when I cook sometimes.
Oh, wow.
So I have to show you the video. But it was so good. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was like, oh, sometimes I outdo myself.
Okay, so before we end up here, is there any question or any thing you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to cover?
Yeah, so one thing I want to talk about specifically is my vision for Uptown.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay, my vision for Uptown is to bring the vibrancy back. I want to bring the vibrancy back. We had it before, we can get it back again. And if anyone is saying, I don't see the difference, I don't know which neighborhood you're living in because it's a dramatic difference. And so I would love to see people walking down the streets again. Mm-hmm. I would love to hear kids playing outside again. I would love to be able to have unique restaurants and retail spaces. I would love to have more opportunities for home ownership in our neighborhood, first-time home buyers or those who are looking to retire. I would love to be able to have multiple people coming from other different metro areas to visit our neighborhood again. I would love to have better partnerships with the city, county, and the state. Mm-hmm. And I would love to be the bridge
Okay.
That's my vision.
Great. Well, thank you for coming in and doing this.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.